Hello everyone, how are you? This is Kenny. I'm in the Phoenix channel. Today I want to talk about music. This channel is going to be kind of a mishmash of a few different things. I wanted to keep some of it with about tech, about computers and stuff, about what I've done with my system and the things that I do with computers. But the other thing that I want to talk about on this channel is music and the way that it is affected and how it's changed over the years. I was brought up on my father brought me into music listening to Fats Domino, Bill Haley and the Comets. My sister got me into the Beatles, and as far as I'm concerned, the Beatles, if it wasn't for the Beatles, music would not be the way that it is today. They were the ones that brought in experimentalization. I want to try to use that word if I can. Correct me if I'm wrong. The reason why music is the way it is today, as far as I'm concerned, was because of the Beatles. They were the first ones to use electronics. Music before '65 was really just a lot of the same thing. It was kind of called, it wasn't really called rock and roll then, it was called skiffle. Kind of double beat, something like that. But the Beatles, when they did Sgt. Pepper, there was nothing like that. And people were listening, they were putting the music on, they were putting this album on for the first time, and they were like, what am I hearing? What am I listening to? And they would listen to this album over and over again, and they said, how did you do this? How did you do that? Well, it was the unbelievable talent of Lennon and McCartney and George Martin. George Martin was the recording engineer at the time, who molded this type of music together. This is what influenced the way that music is now. It was this big domino effect that just ended up pushing music into a totally different realm. This is the reason why we had the bands like Cream, Doors, there was Jimi Hendrix Experience. There was so many of these terrific bands that started doing all kinds of experimental music. They were all influenced by the Beatles. Even with interviews that I have seen from Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, said the Beatles were the ones that influenced me to do music. Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath, he has just, emanated the fact that if it wasn't for the Beatles, he would never be doing music. You got to think about the way that music is now. The generation of now, they don't even know about the Beatles. They might have heard of them, but they didn't know what they did. There was so much of a domino effect that went through the years. We are talking about 1967 when Sgt. Pepper came out, but it was all these other terrific albums that came out. Jimi Hendrix, God rest his soul. Can you imagine what this guy could be doing today if he was still alive? The same thing with the Doors. Now, the Rolling Stones, who came out right around the same time the Beatles did, they kept on the same track at all times. They were always doing more or less the same thing, but they were very good at what they did. I have never had anything against the Rolling Stones. I like the music. I don't necessarily like Mick Jagger. the music that they did was fantastic, and the innovative techniques that they used made some fantastic music back in the 70s. Music that came, rock music that came from the 70s and moved towards what is rock now has evolved like you would not believe. I personally like music of all genres. I don't personally like hip-hop or rap because I never considered it music. I always considered it poetry with a beat. It would be kind of nice if hip-hop and rap would actually change tempos. Their music to me was, it never made any sense to me. It doesn't matter if you're black or white doing this stuff. Change up the tempos every now and then would be great. And it's, a lot of it is so negative that I just stopped listening to it. But that's my opinion. Everybody has their own opinions about the way that, you know, music is and the way that they like it. I've always liked something that has a kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and something that actually moves me. A lot of people listen to music for the same reasons, because it moves you. Music should be uplifting and make you feel good. It also should make you think about the way that you live and the way that you think and the way that you live your life every day. I use music to calm me, to motivate me, and it also helps me think. And also when you're in the car, it's great to have something nice and loud to distract you from all the ding-dongs that are on the road. Think about that. My father brought me up listening to also classical. I was always into Beethoven. The guy was an unbelievable innovator in music. The guy was deaf, and he composed beautiful symphonies. And if you think about it, he was the first one that came out with heavy metal. I mean, just think about the Fifth Symphony. Da 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 da. I mean, can you imagine if you put that if you gave Motorhead that song and had him do it? Lemmy would be going crazy. They were the ones that started out powerful music. Verdi, I think it was Verdi. Is that his name? Verdi, V-E-R-D-I. He played instruments. Some of them were 2 stories high because he wanted them to be loud. He wanted to rattle the walls. Classical music started heavy metal. It's all started back then as that powerful, that stuff that gets you right in the chest. That was what made music so exciting to me. I loved listening to it. My father used to listen to it on our old Grundig hi-fi stereo. This was back in the 70s. And he would play it as loud as he could. He didn't care. He was the one who got me into music and the appreciation of music. I think that what you listen to, like the youth of today, it seems like they get stuck in a rut. Well, let me tell you, I got stuck in a rut when I was 13 and 14 years old. I was listening to all of this candy rock, and like the Archies and all these like one-hit wonders. You can look that up. One-hit wonders. There was so much of it. It was kind of sad because even the one-hit wonders were pretty good. They weren't bad. They were. I remember songs like Hazel. I remember songs like even Rod Stewart's Maggie May. It turned out to be a one-hit wonder, but he ended up being a fantastic singer. Terrific rock crooner. I also grew up in the disco age. tight pants, long hair, silk shirts. Of course, all the girls looked fantastic. And that was when the drugs started, like, really flowing, was during that disco age. And the mirrored balls and Studio 54 and things like that. Disco had its time, but the breath just went out of it. It didn't take long. I think it was about 5 or 6 years, and it was gone. Watch Staying Alive with John Travolta, and you'll see that's disco to the max. Excuse me. I wanted to stay in the rock era. After disco was kind of, I knew that was gone, a band came out to just blow the lid and blow disco out, and that was Van Halen. When Van Halen came out, it hit everybody like a ton of bricks. It was like an explosion. Most unbelievable band I had ever heard. Everybody ran out to get that album, and it got me out of disco so quickly. It was fantastic. We were all trying to get to the concerts. We were doing everything that we could to be Eddie Van Halen. I mean, everybody wanted to be just like him. You know, just playing that guitar, just going crazy. It filled you up. It made you feel fantastic. Then the power bands came in. Yes was the name of a band. Phenomenal. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. These were arena bands. Genesis. ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra. Unbelievable. And it was just music that just, you were just like filled up with this stuff. And then stereos were getting bigger with speakers is, you know, like this big and to the floor, and monster sounds inside of cars. People wanted to hear more. They wanted to get more. So that time was evolving, and music was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and every band was trying to be better than the other bands. The heavy metal bands were still in kind of like in the garage. They weren't making it onto the radio. On some FM stations, there were some heavy metal stations, not a lot of them. A lot more were playing more contemporary rock, and there was a lot more listening to those. That's why there was more of them. But a lot of us garage band, you know, fans, we were trying to, you know, listen to all the great bands, the Sabbath, the Zeppelin, the Judas Priest, Scorpions, Motorhead, all the really heavy bands, and they were coming around, and they were making it to, not all of them were making them to arenas except for Zeppelin. Zeppelin always made a big statement. As far as I was concerned, Led Zeppelin was one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. But Sabbath was, they were the godfathers. And if you actually listen to some of their music, I mean, you have to actually listen to Sabbath. Their guitar work is fantastic. You can't get better than that. They were something else. There was Rainbow. There was Ronnie James Dio, the voice. Judas Priest, you couldn't get any heavier than them. And Motorhead, put Motorhead at a wedding reception. That would really be something. I guess my whole point of this video is try to listen to as many different bands as possible. Don't stay comfortable with just the same music all the time. It's a good idea to listen to everything. Listening to something like Pandora or Spotify, where the music gets mixed up, Pandora especially, because you can type in, like you want Rush radio. You just type in you want to listen to mostly Rush. Well, they play all of that particular genre of music, of Rush. I started listening to a band that I didn't even know existed. The name of the band was it was either Ozric Tentacles or Ozric Tentacles. They made about 25 albums. They were all from England, but they never made it onto the radio. I never heard them, and I was blown away by them. They were just incredible. I couldn't believe the masterful music that they played. It was so incredible. Another band was called Porcupine Tree. Porcupine Tree, they came out of the Midwest. I know that they were from America, but I never heard them. The only place that they probably would ever be would be at WXRT in Chicago, because they always played the totally different bands, and they played small venues, but they had fantastic music. I like listening to something that I've never heard before. It doesn't mean that I'm going to actually like it, but there's that chance. And that happened with Ozric Tentacles. I was like, I couldn't believe how good they were, and I ended up buying all their albums. And it was very satisfying to be able to go like, I listened to something that I never heard before and I really enjoyed it. Bottom line is, hope that you can find music that you've never heard before and actually fall in love with it. There's always something different out there. And hopefully you'll find that too. Music is life. Listening to music and actually liking it and having it fill you up is such a terrific treat. And that's really all I need to say about music. Comment down below if you like this video. Subscribe if you want. And ask me what you'd like me to talk about. I've seen just about, well, I haven't seen every single band, but I've seen a lot. And I've seen all the really great ones. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. This is a good topic. Music is something that you can always talk about. God gave us music, so let's enjoy it. So I hope you liked the video. Hit a like at the bottom if you can, and I'll see you in the next one. So long.